crisis. It's hard to imagine what that's going to look like. I certainly anticipate revolt. I also potentially anticipate draconian overreaction to revolt on the part of the security apparatus. I wonder, though, in some places, whether guards might walk away and open the doors because it's failing so drastically.
So responses to that from Jose. I know we have Jose still on the line.
Yes, I'm here. Well, this is unheard of. We lost nearly 900 men and women in New York State prisons during the HIV/AIDS crisis. Health experts are predicting that this may very well be worse. This may have such catastrophic consequences in New York State prisons that many more lives will be lost. This is why we are trying to organize across the country. We are collaborating with organizers and advocates in California, trying to make this a national move, a national demand for release of elder people in prison and others who are serving long sentences so that they will at least minimize the loss of lives. Governor Cuomo is trying to weather this out, hoping that it doesn't get too deadly where he can ride this to the White House. If under different circumstances, we'd be dogging him everywhere he goes. All his fundraising events will be there. Unfortunately, with this shelter in place, we're limited in what we can do. But we love the idea of honking the horn, real caravan of cars, hundreds if not thousands, disrupting wherever he goes. We have to disrupt him. We have to expose him for not being the leader that he pretends to be, and to lack
Sorry to jump in on you, Jose. We have someone is getting a little background sound on their mic. If you could all please, if you're not the speaker, please mute yourself when you are not speaking. The background interrupts our speakers. Jose, we lost you for probably the last 15 to 20 seconds there. Can you complete your thought from just the last 20 seconds you were speaking?
Yes, I love the idea of a caravan of cars honking their horn. We should do that everywhere Cuomo goes. We should do that everywhere other legislators who are not supporting progressive reform. We have to let them know that they are not representing our interests and we will vote them out. I think that it's time for us to realize that we have power. We have the power of the vote. We have to get out there and vote for people who will represent our interests. If we had people in the legislators who can probably push Cuomo more than we can, we would probably be in a better predicament to save more lives during this pandemic crisis.
Thank you for that, Jose. It seems like time for a Cuomo caravan, if you will, right? To really put the pressure on.
Absolutely.
I understand Johanna Fernandez has a response as well. And I do believe we have Rashid on the line too. If Rashid, you can confirm that after Johanna speaks.
No, I think Rashid needs to go first because he's in prison and I'm not.
Okay, Rashid, are you there? Seren, if we can confirm that Rashid's phone is not muted. Adam, organizer out in Indiana, told me that Rashid should be on the call. Johanna, why don't you speak now, and as soon as we have Rashid back, we'll interrupt you if necessary.
Yeah, okay. So this is the thing. Ultimately, we are standing up against a situation in which massive amounts of people have been dehumanized in the system. So part of what we're up against is the process of humanizing those whom the state has dehumanized for the last 50 years and even longer than that, Black Americans who were dehumanized by slavery. I host a morning show on WBAI, and we've had prisoners, recorded statements from prisoners who've cried about the situation. People are petrified. And I think that in this moment, we have to amplify the voices of prisoners, their stories. How did they get in there? We really need to put a human face on the catastrophe of hyper incarceration of people of color. And we need to figure out a way to break into the media. There has to be a strategy, a media strategy that the media can't avoid. The body bags en masse that are going to be produced from the prisons. I'll repeat, the prisons in the United States are the epicenter of the coronavirus. The level of infection is hugely higher in prison than it is on the outside. I just wanted to reiterate that these human stories hit deep. And so we need to combine the human story with the direct action by hook or crook, following Cuomo and the others and other politicians wherever they may rear their heads.
Thank you for that, Johanna. My understanding is that we are working on getting Rashid back. So Adam is calling him. We will hopefully have him in a moment. I was just alerted to the fact we have another very accomplished activist on the line right now. Laura Whitehorn, are you there? Would you like to?
Yeah, and I would like to
jump
say
in here?
something.
Please jump in.
Can you? Okay, so first of all, thanks for this. This is really good. I just want to build on what Jose was saying, that we are organizing masses of people to do this, and that the goal is both to save lives now, but also to abolish the prison system and policing, and to free communities, Black communities, the communities that have led the struggles throughout the history of this country. And I just do want to push back on one thing, Johanna, my dear comrade, that you were talking about, is emphasizing the nonviolent and the low level is like really counterproductive to us, because what RAP is about, the reason we focus on elders, which sounds so like, kind of innocent, is because those are the people who are in for many decades, many of them for actions against police, many of them for what are called violent crimes, although we know that the US government commits the most violent crimes of anyone. And the reason, and we have a principle, which is that we not only don't we throw anyone under the bus, but we lead with the issue of punitive repression of Black people and of just exactly what Johanna started out with, of resistance. And I think that's really important, because this is a crisis, and a lot of people, and if you go on our website on rapcampaign.com, on the media page, the press page, you'll see that we do have enormous coverage in the media. But the thing is that we're stuck with neoliberalism. That's what's been created. And that's what has replaced the revolutionary movements of the 60s and 70s, who were incarcerated and the communities were incarcerated. And if we don't break with that thinking and just say, no, we're not talking about letting out people who maybe didn't do what they said or, didn't hurt. We're talking about changing, transforming the system from the bottom. Jose said last night on a panel that COVID is exposing every fault line in this society, every racist piece of junk in this society. And that if we don't take this opportunity to be strong and be firm about we are fighting for radical change, then we're going to end up with what will replace all the things that are being destroyed now, will be a neoliberal structure like we saw happening in Palestine, when the Palestinian struggle has been so disabled over years. So I just wanted to add that, and that, what we're fighting for, as Mujahid Fareed, who was the founder of RAP with me and other people, and who's a good comrade of Jose's and who died last year, who used to say, we're the voice of reason. But underneath our voice of reason, we are really fighting for some radical change. And that's why we feel like what we're fighting for now is urgent, and it's a crisis, but it holds the key to a future.
Really well said, Laura. Laura Whitehorn, everyone. We do have Rashid back on the line. And Rashid, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can. Rashid, I don't know if you were
Yeah.
able to hear Laura's point, but she was making the point that it's very important for us not to accept the division between the kind of worthy and unworthy prisoner and instead to fight for the humanization of all people, including all people who are behind bars. I wondered if you could pick up on that point, or if you want to go a different direction. I defer to you, of course, but I know that you yourself have an incredible story of transformation and revolutionary transformation behind bars in your own life story and those around you. Feel free to pick up from that point or pick up whatever you'd like, Rashid.
Yes, I would add that that was something that I was really wanting to also emphasize, the need for us to recognize that all of us in prison in America are illegitimately confined. And that was the point I was trying to stress with how America goes about incarcerating the massive numbers of people that it does, and that incarceration in America is selectively targeted at disempowered people, marginalized people, Black and brown people, the poor. And by understanding that the whole process of imprisonment in America is illegitimate, then we need not focus on whether people are convicted of violent crimes, whether people are convicted of crimes where they were victims or not victims. We are all illegitimately incarcerated. Crime in America is selectively targeted for prosecution, and people who are incarcerated are not imprisoned because they were found guilty by a jury of their peers consistent with the due process promises of the Constitution. They're imprisoned because they don't have the resources to defend themselves. They can't buy their freedom. That is a large part of what incarceration in America is all about. And in that context, we need to understand that we all need to be free. And until America can place in place a system whereby people are legitimately addressed or legitimately confronted because of actual crimes that are committed, with a genuine process where prosecution is directed at eradicating or addressing the crimes in society and healing people, not punishing people, not seeking retribution against people, not penalizing people, but healing the social ills that cause crime, then American criminal justice is anything but just. In that light, I would say that there has to be a major push to release people in prison in America. And as you pointed out, I did write a recent article where it was emphasized that Iran just released 85,000 of its own prisoners, including political prisoners, high security prisoners, etc., over half of its imprisoned population in response to the COVID-19 pandemic. If Iran, which America constantly ridicules as undemocratic, backward, a theocracy, based in feudalism, if Iran is such a backward and undemocratic state and it can release over half of its own prisoners in response to trying to protect life in light of the COVID-19 virus, then America can do no less and release all of its unjust, unfairly, racially targeted imprisoned population as well. And yes, my struggle throughout my years has been addressed to the abuses that occur behind these concealed walls of imprisonment that many people on the outside know nothing about. Prisoners being murdered, brutally beaten to death by staff, murdered by denial of medical care for known diagnosed medical conditions such as asthma, cardiovascular disease, etc. I've witnessed multitudes of prisoners brutalized, murdered. I have myself been a victim of, untold abuses by prison officials. And this is something that I have spent much of my time incarcerated and led to my becoming politicized myself in light of the injustices that I confronted by this system that is supposed to be about healing people, that are supposed to be about rehabilitating people, correcting people, and it's anything but, just and fair, and it does anything but heal and correct. So in that light, I feel, and I agree with what Johanna Fernandez pointed out, that we need to break out of the binds of, small group organizing, small group protesting, etc. And actually, I have been in process of trying to put out a call to create a national network of prisoner support advocacy that will link prisoners' families with prisoners as well as prison support advocates to try to develop a network that can bring to bear pressure against prison systems throughout the country they will be locally based. You know, in each state there will be a chapter of what we were going to call SPARK, which was an acronym that means Supporting Prisoners in Real Change. It's going to be a reflection of a group that I co-founded when I was in the Florida prison system. You know, I've been bounced from state to state because of my activity in exposing prison abuses and involvement in challenging and resisting abuses in U.S. prisons. We started an organization in Florida with, you know, people who were part of IWOC, which is the Incarcerated Workers Organizing Committee, the Fight Toxic Prisons Campaign, et cetera, called SPARK in Florida, where we were able to bring prisoners, their families, and prisoner advocates together into a network in Florida where they were able to challenge the attempts by prison officials to eradicate contact visiting down there in the interest of trying to promote for-profit video visits that would allow, corporations like JPay to profit off of eradicating people being able to have face-to-face contact with their family, and instead being able to earn, money by having prisoners receive their visits through video conferences. So if we can create a network like that nationwide that can be appealed to and activated in response to general abuses, but especially now in response to this COVID-19 crisis, where prisoners' families can be linked up with prisoners on the inside and linked up with prisoner activists who have, experience and history in knowing who to target, how to bring about, certain pressures being brought to bear against, politicians, elected officials whose reputation and images are, in fact, the force by which their very career depends. If we can bring people out in the streets to become aware of what's going on inside these prisons, the real economic, the real class motive behind mass incarceration in America, the role of prisons, et cetera, and I think we can mobilize untold force that can contain a lot of the abuses that go on and that can bring about some of the desired results that we want in the face of this COVID-19 crisis. No. So that's something that I would like to see develop. And I think I have a comrade, matter of fact, I have a comrade on the phone right now who's facilitating my ability to call in, named Adam, who works with IDOC Watch, which is an organization similar to what I'm talking about, based here in Indiana, where I'm now incarcerated. We need to develop these type of structures in each state in America, and also have it linked together as a nationwide network where we can, build support for prisoners, using prisoners' families, active prisoner activists and prisoners, and to kind of break down sort of some of what is sort of a polarization that I've seen exist between prisoner activists and prisoners' families, where prisoners' families don't really trust people who don't have people in prison, and prison activists feel that prisoners' families don't have the political awareness or the experience to know what to do in response to, trying to challenge conditions in prisons. But if we could link activists who are more accustomed to doing some of this small group organizing with families who are somewhat conditioned to fear in the power structure and really feeling they have no voice to raise protests about the abuses of their loved ones, if we can bring them together and link them to prisoners, I think we can create a virtual power, a force of power that the power structure would not easily be able to sweep under the rug and ignore.
And that speaks to Johanna's point about the need to rehumanize people in the public eye as well. I think that's a powerful point, Rashid. We have a question from Sarah Halper from Maryland. And after Sarah, Mike Nugent, I'd like to maybe bring you in again in terms of the challenge and the opportunity of working with the family of the incarcerated, just to give you a heads up. Sarah, are you there?
I can unmute.
Okay, I think we can hear you. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so I've been organizing with this group in Prince George's County, Maryland, called Mass Liberation and Life After Release. And so they first targeted women's prison and doing Mother's Day bailouts to raise money to get the women out on bail because they could not pay their bail. And some people were out and would have been in jail for 2 years before their trial had even started. So we've been doing that, and we've been doing things with, we're trying to get the Governor Hogan to release prisoners out of the prisons. and also now to do a bailout for the COVID-19 people that are affected. The woman that started this, Kiana Johnson, was incarcerated and she's out, and now she's working with some nonprofits to get some money in order to do this kind of work. We've been trying to inject a lot more class and race ideology and consciousness in there. And some of them are a little more receptive than others. But that's why we're really working with this group, because they're one of the ones that are very working class and a lot of Black working class involved. There's a lot of Black working class in Prince George's County. And the other thing they're doing, which is what Rashid was talking about, is they have this participatory defense counseling, where they know people whose loved ones are being involved, entangled up in the system, and they talk to them and they try to help get them out of jail and help get better lawyers for them and help them to demystify the jail system, the injustice system.
This seems to speak to Rashid's call too for the need for a national network. So often, because of the federal system we live under in this country, struggles, the particularities can be different from state to state, right? And that can really result in a kind of fragmentation of our movements. I know it through higher education advocacy here in Massachusetts. It's we need to have some. I think is there a national network that really brings people together in a grassroots way? And if not, how can we create that? How can we contribute to that coming about? Mike Nugent, you've been working in New York, in the city and upstate, bikers and elsewhere. Can you speak a little bit about what your relatively new group to us to end mass incarceration? Mike, are you there? We may have some technical issues with Mike. Okay, so let's problem. So at some point we will end the recorded part of the show, but it's still exchange. Would anyone like to raise their hand or to just frankly to jump in?
Can I jump in?
Sure, Johanna.
So I want to follow up on COVID-19 and imprisonment has been in the news, but it has been in the news, and there seems to be a sense that you can't. There's a lot of.
Okay, it's better now. It's better now, Johanna. You want to continue? If you can mute your phone when you're not speaking, it may be difficult to
not address the demands put forth by RAP. We are inside for violent crime, but the reason why he's able to not do any prisoners. So what I think we need to do is to begin to shift the incarceration and why it's just it's an excuse. It's for the problems it's created, for unemployment, for duration as a jobs program for a very small sector of the country to charge and who've done so much work over so many years. The ground with a clear radical